We are drunkards. I mean, I'm saying that in a general sense. I'm not saying me and you, Math, but obviously here in America, drunkard.
Welcome to your Maverick Pilgrim channel. I am your Maverick Pilgrim, and what we have for you is an episode of Fire Theft Radio. It is the first episode of the Hail Hydra series that I did with my buddy Chuck over there at Fire Theft Radio. It's not the entire broadcast. It's not the entire episode. For that, I'm going to leave the link in the description. Go over to Fire Theft Radio, have a listen, or if it's posted up at the YouTube at this time, I'll put that link under there as well, and enjoy it. It's a great conversation, and we'll see you around.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Fire Theft Radio. We're machinating over here, and we're planning to take over the world.
We got some stuff in the works, in the hopper.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was thinking of using like Pinky in the Brain in the background. I just remember that? Yeah. Actually, very relevant cartoon. But so haven't read the title, and you just said I'm going to click on Fire Theft right quick, and let's see what they got going on. We have a new series. I dropped all other series because I feel like this is relevant, and I want to get. There's so much information to talk about from here till episode 100 that we had to do a whole series, and this is the first of them. The first episode of that series, and the series is called Hail Hydra. Okay, that's what it's called. And of course, if you know anything about Hail Hydra, if you know anything about Hydra, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a octopus. It's a web of connection. It's a specter. It's a secret cabal of situations going on in the background in order to bring about this new world order that is just now no longer even a conspiracy theory to even talk about. Really, it's like tongue-in-cheek conversation. Even on television, we hear politicians, and we are starting this global world order. Australia, when they launched their whole COVID-19 lockdowns, and this is day one of the new world order. And it's just like, goodness gracious, it's really just out there now. So we're going to talk about it in the web that it is, in order to create this. And how did we get here? Because we didn't get here all of a sudden, right, Mav?
Right.
We didn't just say no one just woke up one day and said, hey, you know what? It'd be a good idea to do an NWO. Nah, there's like a whole history. And in order to get people on board, you have to do something to them. You have to subvert their minds, right? And that's why this episode, part 1 of Hail Hydra, we're calling it Replacement Ideology. And the reason I am using that phrase is because you have to do that in order to convince a mass group of people to jump on board, right? But before we get into that, Mav, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining me. Thanks for coming on. And thanks for waking me up actually this morning, because I was totally asleep. I'm not going to lie.
Oh yeah, it's always a pleasure. Got my coffee going, so we're ready to go. I mean, there's just so many things to talk about. It feels like the whatever master plan there might be or not be. Maybe there's lots of little plans that they're just fitting together. Feels like there are more and more people who are seeing that there's, at the very least, something happening. And so the more that we start to talk about some of these different connections, I'm sure that there are folks out there who are going to make a lot more. And it's something that you can study for forever, because really the concept, the idea, it has been going on forever. There is one big, massive idea that has been going on really since, well, I guess we'd say since the Tower of Babel has been going on, maybe even further. But a lot to go. We're not going to cover all that today, though. Just
no. So
just the beginning.
That being said, because there's so many factions of it, we split it up into many episodes, which will lead us up to episode 100. Along the way, we will have guests that have come on the show. We will have guests that have not come on the show, different podcasts sharing their research. And we're going to talk about these things and the information that they have, because I, quite frankly, don't have the time to do all of that research. So we're looking for people that have already done the research. So we're going to have people that have already agreed on to come on our Buy Their Fruits podcast. William Ramsey investigates from William Ramsey from William Ramsey Investigates. He's author, researcher. I mean, the man's very intelligent, very articulate in his research. So he does not talk about anything he cannot articulate well and say that there's a lot of substantial evidence for, which is why I really like his research. I really like William Ramsey's stuff. He's all about information that really is like tangible. So it gives you the links, gives you the footnotes. Love that man's research. He's agreed to come on and talk about a lot of different things. So that I'm trying to get Judd Burton back on. I'm trying to get a lot of folks, even Michael Heiser, even though he's a little more difficult to get on. But lately, I should say, because every time I've asked him, he's come on. He's come on the show at least 3 or 4 times already now.
He's got a lot going on.
Yeah, he does. He's very busy. He blew up big time. He's always working despite fighting cancer. Very admirable. So he's definitely doing the Lord's work there for sure. So that being said, let's kick off the show. Let's go. So like I said in the beginning, in order for this stuff to work, we got to convince the minds. We got to let the people do the work pretty much. And that's us. That's the mass group of people does the work that needs to be done. And all you have to do is introduce it. Inception is probably one of the best movies ever that really reminds me of how stuff like that can work, right? You just set an idea in there and it's like a seed, right? And then they explain it in the movie. Once you plant that seed deep inside the subconscious, it just turns into like a virus. It takes over. He even says it. Leonardo DiCaprio's character says, it's like a virus. It's stronger than a virus. It's worse than a virus because there is no going back after the person has made up their mind that whatever idea you planted that became that reality, then that person you can't unconvince them of that reality, whatever it may be. Now, what are we talking about here specifically? It can be anything. That's the scary part. You can convince people to be atheist. You can convince people to be of a certain denomination. You can convince people to be in a cult. You can convince people to change political parties, to view a certain party a certain way. All it requires is for you to plant an idea deep enough in their mind, and then you let that idea do the work. The person will end up acting accordingly, convincing others. And because of our psychology, our human psychology, the groupthink, being in this society, having our brain work that way, we have to work together, like this sort of natural hive mind situation. It just starts infecting more and more people, and that could be used for good and for bad, of course. So that's the thing. It's like I'm not saying necessarily that process is bad, but it can definitely be used to manipulate people. You got something to add to that, Maverick?
Yeah, the other side of that as well is, I think sometimes when we talk in really broad strokes, because honestly, you have to. It's such a big topic. It's such a big idea. I think one thing to keep in mind also is for those who are followers of Jesus Christ, for those of us who are his disciples, we have the Holy Spirit, right? We have the influence of the Creator. We have the influence of the Lord. And so what you end up seeing, and part of it is Inception is a great example because they tell you the plan, and from their perspective, it's going to work 100%. We know that it's not. Right. We know that at least those who are followers of Jesus, those who are indwelled by his Spirit, are not going to be dragged along in the same way the rest of humanity is, which
even if it looks that way, right? Because sometimes I can be a little cynical and look at, and I'm being honest and transparent here, when I sometimes know that something is pretty much true and I see the church reject it as truth. When I'm talking about Genesis 6, I'm talking about biblical context things. Sure. You get a little bit like sad, almost like, what? How can you be fooled by stuff? And or like a church that's maybe way too nationalist, where they almost put patriotism above the Bible. And, you can get a little discouraged and say, well, all of this happens already, and they don't see the truth. Is it possible for them? But I mean, that's the story of the church. Yeah, they went for a long time deceived, and even before the church, you can read, the main characters of the Bible, and they were deceived for a long period of time, and then God just really put them in a place where they had to see this is the reality of things. This is the truth.
Right. And I've been looking into researching this stuff for quite a while. Coming up on a full 20 years of being awake to the point where I actually started to put the pieces together to see it was bigger than just individual little items. I don't know, without getting into any more detail, but in the past 5 years, I've seen way more people start to wake up, especially believers, look around to say something's not right. It's not quite working. So I think one of the big things is they really try to push a lot of this stuff. And what ends up happening is there are a lot of Christians where it takes us to a certain point where they go, hold on a second, and then think how it works. But one of the big things I think that happens here in the West, in the United States, is if we're comfortable and we can do our thing, we don't really do much, right? We don't reapply the pressure back until there's something, which, so you can wonder why is there been such a lack of persecution in the United States and Canada. And I think one of the reasons was because that was the easiest way to keep everybody asleep, is to let these things kind of continue to roll. If we were just kind of, and not to say the rest of the world isn't important, but a lot of the engine is the United States. If the United States all of a sudden flipped and the majority said we're not going along with this, it would be much, much more difficult. So the enemy is smart, kind of let us just do our thing, not even thinking about any of those things for long enough until it's too late, possibly.
Just became more complacent. As they say, good times create soft
Weak men.
or weak men. That's like what it's used for. But I would argue, obviously, it makes the men weak, of course, but just people in general. Just the comfort is the utmost dangerous thing for sure, and it just creeps up on you because we just get real comfortable. It's so hard. It was so hard for me to transition to not use my microwave, for example. I'm just like, I don't want to use it, and even now it's like, oh man, but it's so easy. I'd rather not heat it up on a pan or in the air fryer, which is still pretty quick, but there's a lot of things, from little things to big things. That's just a small little example, but I want to play a clip, and it's about 6 minutes. So you're gonna have to bear with us. And it's a clip that's been going around for a while already. It's been around since 1984. I think that probably is not a coincidence. But and I feel like it's a connection to the book for sure. And if you haven't read Orwell's 1984, I highly recommend that you do, because you can kind of see the mentality of this Hydra situation, that it's how it's going to be like, and where it's leading to already. And it kind of crept on us because of technology. And in order to make people okay with that, again, you have to subvert their minds. And so you have to do something that the KGB would call ideological subversion. The Soviet Union used to do that, and many other countries used to do that to other countries they wanted to take over, or a group of people, by promoting Lenin and Marxist ideology. So we're going to have Yuri Bezmenov, ex-KGB, explain that to you. And it was in an interview done here in America back in 1984. And what we're going to do is we're going to play just the first 6 minutes, and he's going to explain what ideological subversion is. And there's 4 steps to look in, 4 stages to bring down a country, and we're going to listen to one of them right now. And as the series goes on, we're going to explain the other stages, and so forth, and how they look like in the country that we are experiencing right now. So go ahead and play that clip, Mav, and let's go from there.
Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality,
Right.
the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process, which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place and
Yes.
who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people, and the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. They will join the links of dissenters, dissidents. Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. This they don't understand, and it will be a greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. So basically, America is stuck with demoralization. And unless, even if you start right now, here, this minute, you start educating new generation of Americans, it will still take you 15 to 20 years to turn the tide of ideological perception of reality back to normalcy and patriotism.
Lots going on right there. Very important stuff. But let's focus on that, Mav. I mean, the demoralization is something that was the primary focus, right? Really important, man. What do you got from me, Mav?
I mean, it's very interesting. This clip is from 1984. You kind of think back to what was going on at the time. First Reagan administration, everybody saw the United States as an uptick. And to put it in perspective, this is 5 years from the fall of the USSR. I'll put the fall in quotes since we're not sure what that looks like, what that is. But putting it there and putting it on that timeline, it's very interesting to see some of the things that he's talking about. And if you place that there, you can extract some of that information, and when you apply it, you can see, wow, there were other things going on. Everybody was watching a certain number of issues, or a certain number of issues were being hidden. But if this was really going on, you can definitely look back and see that.
And this is where we're going to cap this part of this episode. If you want to see the whole episode, head on over to Fire Theft Radio. But before you do, feel free to hit the subscribe for more weird and wondrous and different ways of looking at things.